News that the current account deficit is the biggest headache for the RBI and for the finance ministry at this point of time. The current account deficit has gone up to about 5% at the moment. This is high by various norms, by historical experience, international comparison, and it is getting financed by capital inflows, some of it is volatile, so there is indeed a worry. The worry is that if the capital inflows were to stop coming in, then there is suddenly a vacuum there. You can't suddenly start financing the excess of imports or exports through other means, and in case the inflow is due to some concern about the Indian economy or it is due to just ban, then in that situation it becomes all the more difficult for the RBI or the Government of India to be able to borrow in the international market. And also the foreign exchange reserves now relative to the GDP, relative to exports and imports are no longer as high as they used to be. They are not worrisome, but they are not very comfortable as they used to be some time back. So this is an immediate policy concern that we have in India, coinciding with the lecture on capital flow and exports at the moment. So we make use of the opportunity to learn about the current problem, which is the current account deficit at the moment. So it seems to be even more important than the fiscal deficit problem as of now. There are, of course, the long-run problems and the short-run problems. The long-run problems, of course, they are in India different. They are to do with the poverty and the inequality and unemployment and so on. About the macroeconomic management in the short run is very important. So in that context, let's look at this. Okay. So first, foreign exchange reserves, capital controls, strong fundamentals in international credit line. Reserve is the most familiar foreign exchange reserve. I talked about it earlier also. Capital controls put restrictions on outflow of capital or inflow of capital, so that you don't get into this problem at all. Now you could do this ex ante or you could do this export. By export I mean, in case you get into a difficulty, then you announce that the Government of India will not allow outflow of capital. Now that has some difficulties. There are reputation considerations. Also there are international norms, so exports doing that becomes very controversial. If at all it has to be done, it has to be done ex ante so that the investors know that there is a possible problem on outflows. The third is strong fundamentals. Now if you look at some of the developed countries, and here I may give examples of countries like Switzerland or some other parts of Europe, or in Asia it's one countries like Hong Kong, and in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia and so on. Then they don't really do in terms of foreign exchange reserves or capital controls. They rely on strong fundamentals. Can there be sudden outflows? Very unlikely. But even if there were to be sudden outflows, would that be a large proportion compared to the stock market capitalization compared to various others? Not really. So this is not really a concern that many of those countries have. So they rely mostly on strong fundamentals. And last, and that is what I'm going to spend some time on, which is new, relatively new, is the international credit line. The credit line is an option to borrow. You may or may not borrow but you buy an option, you pay a fee, and having paid that fee, you retain the option to borrow in the event of a crisis. Why do you have to have an option? Because once the crisis hits you, at that point it becomes very difficult, if not impossible to borrow. So it is good to have an ex-ante option, and having had the option, then the seller of the credit line is not in a position to say that no, we are not going to lend you the money now. After all, that's what the option is for. So, but before I move to credit line, a little bit on foreign exchange reserves. This is to look at how the speculative could attack a currency. So what we have here is, for simplicity, two traders and the public authorities. Here it's called the government. You could call it the government. You could call it the central bank. You could call it public authorities. This includes both of them. And we have three cases. This is first case is high reserve. The central bank is holding large amount of reserves. In the second case, the central bank is holding small reserves, and in the third category, there are intermediate level of reserves. And there are two traders, trader 1 and trader 2, and this is put as a game. Trader 1 can adopt the strategy of holding or selling. What is it that they are holding or selling? This is a domestic currency. And the traders hold domestic currency only, but it is there is convertibility of currency, so you can always convert from the domestic currency to foreign currency. And the foreign currency is being held by the central bank. So these are the three agents in the model that we have. And the exchange rate for simplicity is $1, or let's say one foreign currency equal to one domestic. This is to begin with. Now we are abstracting small short-term fluctuations. So treat it as if it is a case of fixed exchange rate. But don't take that literally. So this is the exchange rate to begin with. Why not? That's not the possibility. It makes the calculations simpler. So the traders, each trader holds 6 units of currency. This is domestic. This is to represent the financial muscle. How strong are the traders? And you could take many traders with a heterogeneity of financial muscle, but make it simple and take it as a case of two traders. To begin with, as I said earlier, each trader holds the domestic currency, the central bank holds the foreign currency, and this is the exchange rate to begin with. Now, in case the traders want to convert their domestic currency to foreign currency, they can do so. Now, of course, the way it happens actually is that there is a market where you have the traders buying or selling, and also the central bank participating in that market. But we abstract from the factual part of it there, and it is as if you are a trader and you go to the central bank cash counter, give your domestic currency and demand the foreign currency as the prevailing exchange rate. And the central bank is interested in defending that prevailing exchange rate. It's a given exchange rate to begin with. Okay, and there is transactions cost. This is there is some cost to the whole operation. Don't take it literally as transaction cost in the sense of a brokerage or something, but you may have to do research, you may have to do some lobbying, you may have to maintain some public relations, etc. So there's a cost involved to the whole thing, and it will be assumed that that cost is equal to 1 unit. It is fixed. Of course, it can be made more elaborate, but it's not unreasonable to look at it like that. If you do participate in an attack on the currency, so this is a game of attack on the currency. If you do, then you need to incur that cost. If you don't, then you don't need to incur that cost at all. Having incurred that cost, you may or may not benefit from the operation, and we will see under which case the traders would have an incentive to go in for speculative attack on the currency. Okay, so if I missed out something, I'll come to it on the way, but let me take the three cases, and then we begin with the first one. So trader 1, so you have two rows there. Trader 1 can hold on to the domestic currency, or trader 1 can sell the domestic currency. So in the first case, holding on to the currency is trader 4. So you don't have to do anything. In the other case, you sell the domestic currency. In this case, it means that you are participating in this whole operation. So you have a transaction cost of 1 unit. Similarly, trader 2 has two strategies. He can hold on to his domestic currency or sell the domestic currency for foreign currency, transact with the central bank. And again, there is a 1 unit transaction cost for trader 2, just as it is for trader 1. And R is equal to 20. What does that mean? That is the amount of reserves held by the central bank. So 20 units of foreign currency are held by the central bank. So long as the demand for foreign currency by the traders is less than 20, the central bank is in a position to defend the given exchange rate of 1 unit of foreign currency for 1 unit of domestic currency. If the financial muscle with the speculators is more, then in that case the central bank is not in a position to defend the exchange rate. And what we are assuming here is that the domestic currency depreciates. Again, for simplicity of calculations and also to make the analysis generally simple, we are not considering a variable rate of depreciation to be endogenously determined. We just take it as a numerical example. So it depreciates by 50% if the speculative attack succeeds. And as you can see here, each trader holds 6 units of domestic currency. So the first case is straightforward. The traders have 6 units of currency. Even if most of them were to attack the currency, the total number of domestic units of currency that they have is 12, which they can use to buy the foreign currency. The central bank is more powerful. It has 20 units of foreign currency. It is always in a position to sell 12 units of foreign currency demanded if both of the traders were to demand foreign currency. It is still left with 8 units of foreign currency, and the speculative attack will not be successful given the large amount of reserves with the central bank. The traders will not gain. Not only will they not gain, they will lose, because there is a cost involved in this whole operation, which is 1 unit, and each of them will lose about 1 unit. So now look at the payoffs in each of the boxes. If trader 1 holds on to the domestic currency and trader 2 holds on to the domestic currency, which is the first box, then each of them gets a net return of 0, obviously. The box there, the trader 1 holds trader 2 sells. So trader 1 doesn't gain, doesn't lose. So the payoff for trader 1 is 0. The payoff for trader 2 is -1 because the operation is not successful and the transaction cost gets incurred. And since it is symmetric, the payoff here for trader 1 sell, trader 2 hold is -1 0. There it was 0 -1. It's symmetric, so it's same. And the last box is -1 -1. Both of them sell their domestic currency for foreign currency, acquire it, but then nothing happens. They don't make a gain on this whole operation. Each of them loses 1 unit. Now, with these payoffs in each of the 4 cases, you can check that the Nash equilibrium is familiar. Right. So the only Nash equilibrium is trader 1 holds on to domestic currency, trader 2 holds on to domestic currency. It's a unique equilibrium, and it is one where you maintain the status quo, nothing happens. That's the simple, straightforward case. So let's consider now the second case. The central bank is holding small amounts of paper, 6 units, and each of the trader holds 6 units of the domestic currency. And what we are assuming is that if the central bank has lost all its reserves, then at that point the domestic currency depreciates. So that's where there is a possibility of a gain for the speculators. So again, each of the traders can hold on to the domestic currency or sell. So the first box payoff is of course 0-0 because each of the traders is holding on to the domestic currency. It is status quo 0-0. The second one I mean trader 1 holds on to domestic currency. Trader 2 sells domestic currency. Trader 1 gets 0 because he is not doing anything. Trader 2 has a payoff of 2. Why is that? Because he has 6 units of domestic currency, converts them all into foreign currency. The central bank has lost all the reserves it had, and we assume that when the central bank has lost its reserves, then the domestic currency depreciates by 50%. So 6